This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health. If you're struggling through the pains of alcohol or drug addiction or a mental health disorder, now's the time to seek the help that you need. Let this be an opportunity to get back on track and get back to finding the real you. You're not alone, and Promises Behavioral Health is here, and they can help. Now, we've worked with Promises for years. We know their teams personally. We have great relationships with them. And most importantly, we trust Promises. That's why we partner with them. And if we can trust them, you can trust them too. To learn more about Promises treatment options for you or your loved one, here's what you can do. Go to promisesbehavioralhealth.com/soberguy. That's promisesbehavioralhealth.com/soberguy. Or you can just pick up the phone and call 888-205-1890. That's 888-205-1890. Tell them that you heard about them from That Sober Guy podcast.
That Sober Guy podcast contains adult content, merciless truth, and emotional nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
I'm Shane Raymer. You're listening to That Sober Guy podcast, and we help people, dudes in particular, men, quit drinking. If it's your first time listening, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here today. Great to be here with you.
No goodbyes, just sneak to the
If you've been listening for a long time, thanks for coming back. Thank you for supporting the show. Hope you're having a great day today. Another day, PMA, positive mental attitudes.
You're never bringing me down.
Trying to stick tight on that, no doubt. The ups and the downs, the peaks and the valleys. We're not striving for perfection, but we're striving for excellence. Excelente. I love it. How do I find a coach, a mentor, a sponsor, someone to hold me accountable? It's the topic of today's podcast. One more time. How do I find a coach, a mentor, a sponsor, or someone to hold me accountable? Such a great question. And this great question comes from Brad in our Sober Guy men's crew on Locals. Just want to give a shout out to Brad. So thank you for the great question. I believe it's applicable to many out there because it's not the first time I've heard the question, but it is the first time we've talked about it on the podcast in quite a while. And so rather than responding on the text thread in the Locals group, and I thought about doing a quick video, and then I said, you know what, why don't I just do a podcast on this and then I'll post it in there, and we'll do it that way instead, because there's a bit to this. I think there's a few things that we need to cover and to go over in this, and I think it's going to speak to quite a few dudes out there who might be looking for an accountability partner, a mentor, a coach, sponsor. We're going to talk about the different terms too. I mean, they're all one and the same in some sense, or at least they're all related. So I had a couple of other topics too that I was kicking around for this week's podcast. And then when Brad proposed this one in the group, I said, man, this is perfect. That's it. Let's do that. So we're going to dive into how do I find a coach, mentor, sponsor, someone to hold me accountable in just a minute. But first, let me tell you a little bit more about our Sober Guy men's crew on Locals. And let me tell you how you can join us too. Now, first of all, if you're not in there and you're trying to quit drinking on your own, you're missing out. We have hundreds of dudes from across the country in our Sober Guy men's crew who are staying connected. They're holding themselves accountable, and they're building a new life free from alcohol. And as a matter of fact, I want to take just a second and give a big shout out to Alex, who has 4 months today. Good job, Alex. Congrats, bro. I'm glad you're a part of the Sober Guy crew. And I know it's been a bit of a journey for you, some ups and some downs, some highs and some lows, man. And no pun intended by that, by the way. But it's all part of the process. And we continue to move forward with support and good people around us. And man, that's what it takes, showing up and doing the work. So Alex has 4 months today, and it's pretty awesome. And there's a lot of dudes who are celebrating, different times, from just a couple of days to 30 days to 60 days to multiple years. And all together, when we come together in a community like that, in a Sober Guy crew, as we call it, man, there's a lot of power in there. So as you can see, we do shout outs on the podcast. We have weekly meetings. We have live chats. We have Q&As. And really the majority of it is just dudes that are connecting in there, posting, sharing experience, sharing struggles, asking questions, and staying connected every single day. And I want to give you one more quick example of this too. This is one of my favorites. It's so awesome. So first of all, my buddy Ray and my buddy Noel, both in the Sober Guy Men's crew. I've known Ray since the first grade. We were friends back in the first grade when we ditched the bus out in Elmira, California, which was a little country farm school. And him and I decided we wanted thumb suckers from Fry's, which was the little local store. So we hid behind the bike racks and we waited for the bus to leave. Let me just remind this one more time. Let me say that again. First grade. So we're like 7 at this time, 6 or 7, out in the country, a few miles from home. And we ditch the bus. And so we walk to Fry's and we get our thumb suckers and we go through. So I don't know if you remember those like thumb. It was like a big thumb. It was like a lollipop, but it was in the shape of a thumb. I don't know. Back in the day, I guess they were real popular at that time when it came out. So we ditch the bus, we get the thumb suckers from Fry's, and we walk all the way home through like these huge fields, through dirt. I mean, we're dirty. I got my ass whooped when I got home because my mom and dad thought we got kidnapped, which is terrible. I can't even imagine that as a dad today, like that, something like that happening and thinking like, where in the hell is my son, and not knowing. So anyways, wasn't planning, excuse me, by the way. I've kind of been feeling a little bit under the weather the last couple of days, but I think I'm pulling through. So Ray, I've known Ray a long time. That was the point to that. First grade, ditching the bus. And then Noel, who I've known for a few months. Okay. And they're both in the Sober Guy Men's crew. We're both, all of us are on the, Wednesday meetings occasionally. We're all in there chatting it up. And it just so happened that Ray and Noel live in the same area out in Texas. And so, in helping to introduce them through the group, eventually they meet up, they have coffee, and now they're buddies and they're staying accountable to each other and they're checking in and, they got some, a new friend now. So those are the types of things that can happen when we put ourselves out there and we get uncomfortable and we grow and we learn and we explore. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that in this episode, obviously today, and how to find a coach, mentor, or sponsor. But before we do that, once again, just let me finish the Sober Guy Men's crew. I know I'm a little bit all over the place right now, but here's what you want to do. If you're not in the Sober Guy Men's crew yet, you can download the Locals app on iTunes, or you can go to Google Play. You can download it there, whether you have an Android or an iPhone. Or you can go, if you're on a desktop and you want to just go to the website, it's thatsoberguypodcast.locals.com. Okay, I would recommend downloading the app. It's probably the easiest way. Do everything on your phone there. But if not, if you want to do it on the desktop, one more time, thatsoberguypodcast.locals.com. All right, follow us on Instagram at thatsoberguypodcast. And give us a follow. Do that. All the resources, everything we talk about today will be in the show notes. And you can really find anything you need at thatsoberguy.com. All right, so how do I find a coach, mentor, sponsor, or someone to hold me accountable? And quite a few different parts I wanted to go over on this and talk about. So let's dive in, I guess. Who are some people? This is the first thing I thought of. Who are some people who have coaches and mentors? Okay, and this is just a small list here that I threw together. Athletes obviously have coaches, no matter how old they are. Musicians, they have teachers, coaches, mentors. Businessmen, same thing. Entrepreneurs, same thing. People who speak for a living, same thing. They have a speaking coach. Teachers in general. So even somebody who's going into the field of teaching at one time has probably had a mentor or somebody teaching them. Okay. I thought about construction, like somebody in the trades who's an apprentice. They've had a mentor, a coach, a journeyman who showed them the ropes. They've had a teacher. They've had somebody. And then this last one, your local UPS guy who delivers your packages. If you get something from UPS, you ever seen the two people driving? Maybe it's two dudes or two ladies or a dude and a lady, and the one in the passenger seat is usually the apprentice. It's usually the one who's training from the mentor, from the coach, the coworker, whatever term you want to put it up in. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in just a minute. Okay. So the point here is everybody needs a coach, needs a mentor. You need somebody, even a relationship, a marriage coach, a marriage therapist. Okay. It's another great example of like things that we do in life that are tough, that we don't just know how to do. Like, when did we get all grown up? And I know I've talked about this before, but when did we get all grown up and confused and get the idea that we didn't need a coach or a mentor or a sponsor or a teacher or somebody to hold us accountable and to help guide us through this crazy ass life? Like, when did that happen? We're like, oh, I don't play sports anymore. I'm not in middle school or high school, so I guess I don't have a coach. I just need to go do life on my own. Like, it's usually a lot of the time when people start heading down the right path, they don't have good leaders around them. They don't have good people around them. They don't have people helping to guide them. And you can be 20, or you can be 70. As long as you remain teachable, you can always have a mentor, a sponsor, a teacher, somebody helping you along the way. So terms and meanings is something I wanted to go over because you've heard me say like 6 different terms, right? So I've said a coach, a sponsor, someone to hold accountable, a mentor, a trainer is another one, an accountability partner. So you have a couple different terms, right? And so here's the way I understand that. Really, they're all similar. They're not exactly the same, but they're all pretty similar. Now, when we hear the term sponsor, it's usually associated with some sort of 12-step, a 12-step group. Any of the 12-step groups, when you hear sponsor, that's usually where that comes from. Although what I find interesting is in any of the books, at least one of the books in particular, it never mentions sponsor. So I've kind of dug around a little bit on where that comes from, and I've never been able to get a solid answer. And that's just one of those things I thought was interesting. Like, where did the roots of that come from? I don't know. Maybe if somebody knows, they can write in and let us know, or jump in on Instagram at That Sober Guy Podcast and send a message or something. But, sorry, I was getting a couple texts here. Oh man, my boy Riddle hitting me up for some golf tomorrow. Eagle Vines. Oh, that sounds amazing. Got softball and baseball in my little nephew's birthday party, so there will be no golf for you tomorrow, Raymer. That's okay. Maybe some other time. All right, sorry, I got off track there. 12 steps, usually affiliated with the term sponsor, right? Okay, and I was saying, yeah, if you know where that term comes from, that was another interesting thought that I had. So if you look over now and you go to the next one, like a coach or a trainer, that might be something that is from the private sector, or maybe an organization, or an athlete, obviously, would use a coach or a trainer. And then you also may just hear accountability partner or mentor. Maybe that's just somebody that is a friend of yours, or it is, and let me go back to the private sector, a coach or trainer. That might be somebody that is a paid service, right? Like, for instance, I did CrossFit. I got Coach Trent, okay, one of my boys. We paid to go to the gym. That's where I initially met Coach Trent. And then I also, when we left the gym and I had him doing some private programming for me, I paid Coach Trent to do some private programming for me. So maybe you do that with a trainer. Maybe it's a singing coach. Maybe it is an athletic coach or an athletic trainer. Maybe it's a business coach. That's going to be more something in the private sector. Okay. So I just wanted to make that clear too. And then as I started to get into accountability partner or mentor, maybe that is somebody who's a family member, who is a close friend. Maybe it's somebody that you just met and you're just like, hey, let's hold each other accountable. Like, I'll hit you up and I'll ask you, this question, and you can do the same thing for me, and we'll talk about it. We'll meet once a week. Okay. So those are kind of the main terms and meanings when we hear those terms: sponsor, trainer, coach, accountability partner, mentor. Okay. So I just wanted to clarify what those are first. Okay. So the next question: what does a coach or a sponsor do? What does a coach or a sponsor do? We've talked a little bit about it so far, but let's dive in a little bit more. Keeps you accountable. A coach or a sponsor helps to keep you accountable. My neighbors are like it's so funny. My neighbor's cool, man. He brings my garbage cans in. Good dude. He's a retired police officer. But man, dude, him and his boys, they sit across the street and they just drink, man. I can hear him out there right now, just getting down. So it's so funny. The irony, here I am, doing a podcast, trying to help dudes quit drinking, and right across the street from me, I can hear him and they're just peeling him back on a Friday. So, it's the irony of life sometimes, man. It just is. And what's funny is, like, some people say, why don't you go over there and try to help them? And it's like, dude, really? Like, you don't help people who don't want help. I don't know. Maybe he does want help, but point is it's attraction rather than promotion. I'm just going to do my thing, lead my life the way that I live my life. And hopefully somebody sees that and they say, man, I want that, which is one of the points that we're going to talk about here when I get to that in just a second too. Okay. So what does a coach, what does a sponsor do? Keeps you accountable. I think that's one of the biggest things is accountability. We lack that as men. We lack accountability. When we lack accountability, it's really hard to make progress and to grow. We need accountability in our lives. We need somebody, we need a group, we need a person, we need somebody or something to help us stay accountable. And a mentor, a coach, a sponsor, an accountability partner is somebody who's going to do that for you. Okay. What else do? They work a program with you. Maybe it's a 12-step. Maybe it's a private program. Maybe it's and I'm just in general, maybe it's a cross training or CrossFit program. Maybe it's a coaching program. Maybe it's a group program like Celebrate Recovery, for instance. That's I guess it's 12-step based. But it's a group program that you might do in a group. Okay. And so they have accountability partners and mentors in that group. So 12-step, a private program, a group program, that is something that a mentor, a sponsor, a coach should help you work through, to help you do, help you get through, help guide you along the way. What else do? They provide honest feedback. Now, that could be encouraging, hey, I'm giving you some great feedback today. You're doing a really great job. I love what you're doing. Man, it's everything is really coming along. They're motivating you. They're encouraging you. Or they could also be calling you out on BS. Hey, I saw that, you said you were doing this, but you're not, or, hey, what's going on here? It's providing that honest feedback and that open line of communication. Okay. And that goes both ways in that. And that kind of ties into the accountability portion of that too. What are some other things? Shares experience. A coach, a mentor, a sponsor shares their experience with you. And then they provide advice based on experience as well. So they share their experience. They also can provide advice as needed based on their own experience. They help you meet short and long-term goals. So maybe you have some goals set, and your accountability partner, your mentor, your sponsor, your coach is going to help you meet those goals. And for me, it always comes back to the accountability piece of this. I'm working with a business coach right now who's awesome. And one of the biggest things that he's helping me do, there's a lot going into it, but we have goals to meet each week. And if I didn't have him to hold me accountable, I wouldn't meet those goals. The only reason I'm meeting those goals is because I don't want to get on the call each week and go, I didn't meet my goals. I want to be done. And, they're not perfect. Like sometimes I have to adjust, and one week I did a little less and the next week I killed it. You gotta remain flexible. I get it. But the accountability piece of that and meeting those short-term or long-term goals is huge. That is, a huge part of a coach, mentor, sponsor. They're also there when you need them. You can rely on them. It's someone that you can trust and that you can count on, and so that's important when you're finding or looking for somebody to work with. So you got to make sure that you can trust them. You got to make sure that you can rely on them. Make sure that they're dialed in their own foundation, whatever it is. So those are some important things that a coach, a mentor, a sponsor will do. All right, let's move on to the next question. This was the original question that Brad had, is how do you find a coach? How do you find a sponsor? How do you find a mentor? How do you find somebody to hold you accountable? It's not me. You're going to have to get uncomfortable, no doubt. That's one of the things that I think pushed me over the edge and and when I say pushed me over the edge, I mean in a good way, like pushed me over to quit drinking, is I knew I had to get uncomfortable, and I knew it was going to be uncomfortable. I knew it was going to kind of suck at first, but I knew that there was an end in sight and that it was going to make my life and my family's life so much better. And so I was willing to get uncomfortable because I knew that. I knew that there was a win involved in this at some point. And so that's the mindset you have to have when going into uncomfortable situations. There's a reason for it. And getting uncomfortable is not for nothing. That's where you grow. That's where the growth happens, because you're forced to grow there, because you're uncomfortable. You got to step out. You got to change. You got to do new things. You got to try new things. Okay? So how do you find a coach, a sponsor, a mentor? Plan on getting uncomfortable. Number one, find a men's group. Find some sort of group, some sort of community, some sort of fellowship. Maybe it's at a church. Maybe it's online. There's a company called Sober Grid. It's like a huge social networking company that just has people everywhere. It's another one. We've had them on the podcast a couple times, a couple years back. Good dudes. Their company's grown like crazy in the last few years. I see them pop up. They have an app. So that's a resource for you. 12-step meetings. I know everybody doesn't want to do 12 steps, and many people do love 12 steps. And that's okay. Everybody's different, and I understand that and respect it. And I think though that 12-step meetings are a great place to try to find a sponsor, a mentor. I guess we would refer to it as a sponsor more than likely in most of the rooms. So whether it's digital meetings, whether it's in-person meetings, it's a great place. Celebrate Recovery at the church is another good one. If you can find Celebrate Recovery out there at your local church, another great spot to meet somebody who can potentially sponsor you or be an accountability partner. Men's groups at the church too is another spot. Like I know that, there's a couple of churches in our community here that I'm familiar with. Obviously Valley Church is one of them. I've had my buddy, Pastor Jeremy, on. They have a men's group. They have a men's breakfast actually coming up, I think in just a week or so, that I'm going to go hang out at, and it's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. We had I got invited out to a men's group bonfire evening one night out at my boy Ian's house. And there was like 8 or 9 of us. I didn't know anybody. I knew Ian and I knew Pastor Jeremy. And I think that those were the only 2 guys that I knew out of the 8, 9, or 10 of us that were there, and that's awesome to me. I love meeting new people and branching out. And we had some great conversations that night. And if I was looking for an accountability partner, somebody who was kind of hanging out with, that's where you start building those relationships and those friendships. It's stuff like that. So once again, in order to do that, you might have to get a little bit uncomfortable and go to somewhere that you don't know anybody, or jump in a meeting online that you don't know anybody. And you got to be consistent, and you show up, and eventually you start breaking in, and you start meeting and, making friends, and you start getting to know people. And like, you'd be surprised what happens when you put yourself out there. Let me just put it like that. You'd be very surprised what God will do when you put yourself out there. And, getting uncomfortable, it's a part of that. And in order to change, you got to do it. Another thing I wanted to mention is, how do you find a coach? How do you find a sponsor? Look for somebody, or start looking for dudes who have what you want. Is there a dude in your 12-step meeting that you're like, man, dude, I want what he has? Is there a dude in your church, in your men's group, Is there a dude in the sober guy crew? Wherever it is that you're at, that you see somebody who's doing what you want to do, follow them. Follow them. Try to create a relationship with them. Try to start getting to know them. Try to start seeing how they're doing things. That's another great way, and eventually if that person is a sponsor or a mentor or a coach and there's an opportunity to work with them, who knows what will happen? You never know until you put yourself out there. I'm going to keep coming back to that one. And then once you've identified someone, just ask, hey, you got another same thing, getting uncomfortable. They might say no. Well, whatever. How are you going to know if you don't ask? They might say yes too. Hey, looking for an accountability partner. You want to be my accountability partner. Looking for a sponsor. I'm looking for a mentor. That's kind of where this stuff really starts at. And here's the other thing too. It doesn't have to be forever. Okay, I've had a couple of sponsors before Buddy. Buddy's my sponsor now. Okay, Buddy and I have worked together for over 5 years now, I believe. And that whole story in itself it's a great example of putting yourself out there and letting God do work. Because I didn't know Buddy, never met. Buddy and I have only met in person one time. And it was when I was in Nashville for a conference working, and Buddy came up from Georgia or down from Georgia or to the side from Georgia. I can't remember where it is on the map. I think it's to the side. And we hung out and it was amazing. Went to dinner, had a great time, but we still meet once a week, and we talk and we communicate and we share and we hold each other accountable. And, Buddy's somebody that I look up to and that has been a great mentor, a great sponsor, a great friend, and that would have never happened had I not put myself out there, and I got an email from him one day. He listened to the podcast and we started chatting, and, before you know it, we meet once a week, and he's a great friend of mine. And, those are the types of things, like I would have never known, like you can't go into something and say, I am going to find a sponsor and a friend and a mentor in a guy that lives in Georgia across the map. I'm going to go. It doesn't work like that. I just put myself out there. Buddy put himself out there, shot the email, and boom, God works. So I hope that makes sense in some of this, because we have to take action. It doesn't mean we sit back and be lazy. We got to show up, but we also don't have control over things. And I've found in my own experience that when I put myself out there, God does some crazy stuff that I don't get. I don't understand sometimes, but it always seems to work out. So, next to that, you can have multiple mentors, coaches, and sponsors too. You don't have to just have one. Okay. So Buddy is like my mentor, my sponsor, right? I also have Jonathan George, my business coach. Amazing dude, learning so much from him, right? I have my whole mastermind group. That's 7. My mastermind group, let's see, there's 5 of us. And then with Jonathan, with Buddy, that's 7 dudes right there. And that's not even all, that's not all of them, but that's like the core from my mastermind group, Buddy, Jonathan. That's 7 dudes that I trust, that I respect, that help me move the ball forward in all aspects of my life, that are either coaches, mentors, sponsors, accountability partners, or friends. And that's what we need to be surrounding. That's what I need to be surrounding myself with. And I have other friends and family and stuff that I respect and that I can get advice from if I need it, or give advice to if they ask for it. There's a lot of that, but having like a core set of mentors, coaches, and sponsors, that's huge. And I don't want that to feel overwhelming either. Like it's like, oh my God, I got to have this huge group. Like just start with one. Just start with one. Let's accountability partner. How about we start there? That seems easy enough. So this all started once again by putting myself out there, even when I felt uncomfortable and fearful. And not only did I feel uncomfortable and fearful, do you know what it also made me feel? It made me feel alive again by feeling uncomfortable and a bit fearful, because there was those butterflies. It made me feel something again, and I hadn't felt for so long. So we can use some of those feelings of uncomfortability and fear and doubt, we can use those to our advantage when we're aware of them. And we know that it's really bullshit at the end of the day. Because why? Why do I need to feel like that? I'm trying to better myself. I'm trying to feel alive again. And if you start feeling like that, you know you're probably on the right track. And so I want to encourage you to go for it. I also want to ask if there's anyone in our Sober Guy men's crew who's interested in becoming an accountability partner. Or if you want to put the term sponsor on it. However you want to frame it up, doesn't matter to me. All we care about is connecting dudes and connecting in the fact of bettering each other. Please, if that's you, if you want to be an accountability partner, you want to be a sponsor, let us know in the group chat. All you got to do is just post in there, hey, I'm willing to be an accountability partner, or I'm looking for an accountability partner. Hey, I'd love to help any way I can. Or if you want to be a sponsor and you got, roughly like you got some time, and you kind of are getting it now. Maybe you've done some group work. Maybe you've done 12-step. Maybe you have some background and you have a little bit of time and you want to be a sponsor. Please throw that in there as well too. What we'll do is we'll try to start connecting dudes in the Sober Guy men's crew. I'm still drumming up some ideas on how we're going to move forward and do that. But this is a common question, and there's a need there for this. There's a need for dudes to come in and be connected. And I want to point out one more too. So, and I left this out on last podcast, I think, but my boy Cody, who I've known since we were kids too. It's probably like 40 something days now. Maybe I did mention him on one of the podcasts. Actually, I think I did. But in any case, Cody has probably between 40 and 50 days right around there right now with no alcohol. And he hit me up about a sponsor, and he said, hey, what about, who was the guy? He had only been in a couple meetings on Wednesday. He said, who was the guy with the big beard in there? I can't remember his name. And it ended up being Jason. And Jason has been he's one of the OGs of the Sober Guy men's crew. Like he's been in there since I first started it. And so long story short, Cody, who I've known since we were kids, and Jason, who I just met through Sober Guy, from both of us putting ourselves out there. He's up in Washington. Cody's in Colorado. And now they're working together. Jason is Cody's sponsor. He's his mentor. He's his accountability partner. They're helping each other. And really Jason's helping Cody, if you look at it like that, but Cody's helping Jason too. It goes both ways. And that's how this works, when we put ourselves out there for that. So once again, if there's anyone in the Sober Guy men's crew, you want to be an accountability partner, you're looking for an accountability partner, you want to start working, just please throw something in there. We'll figure it out, and we'll see if we can get some conversations started around that and some new ideas popping up on how we can help facilitate that moving forward. Well, that about does it for today. If there's anything that I can help with, whether it's helping you to find a meeting, a men's group, if it's getting connected in our Sober Guy men's crew on locals, if you're interested in one-on-one coaching, you can reach out. If you're interested in the courses that we offer, you can find all that info and all the resources. You can find more podcasts at thatsoberguy.com. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope something spoke to you. Big shout out to all my boys in the men's crew, Sober Guy. I love that this group is just growing, and it's really a great platform. So thank you guys. I hope something spoke to you today. Share the podcast with a friend. Connect with us on Instagram at That Sober Guy Podcast. Peace, love, and respect. Keep your blood